Today, we're exploring the smile stitch by starting with a one-sided stitch pattern that creates a fabric that curls and transforming it into a cozy reversible fabric, which looks similar to the right side of the original on both sides and lies flat. First, we'll explore the compound stitch that makes up the heart of the stitch pattern, and then transform the stitch pattern into the reversible smile stitch in 3 easy steps. I'll give you a key tip to read your knitting, and at the end I'll show you the features of the ribbon scarf I created using the smile stitch. For the example swatch and the ribbon scarf, I'm using 5mm needles and Uptown Worsted by Universal Yarn. If you're new to knitting, check out my Learn to Knit, the ABCs in Cotton series for the basics. They're linked in the description below. So let's knit. The original stitch pattern and the smile stitch have a 3-stitch repeat. I've cast on 4 repeats, so 12 stitches for the example swatch, plus 2 selvage stitches. I've slipped the selvage stitch purlwise with yarn in front, as usual. The original stitch pattern and the smile stitch are formed around a combined decrease-increase stitch. First, start as a knit 2 together. Before letting the old stitches fall off, knit the first stitch again. Now, let both old stitches drop off the needle. Just for now, we'll knit 1 stitch as per the original instructions. Let's do that again. Decrease by 1 stitch with a knit 2 together, keep both stitches on the needle, increase by knitting the first stitch again, and knit the 3rd stitch in the repeat. The fundamental compound stitch creates an interesting twisted pile of knit-looking stitches. I've knit the selvage stitch as usual. When we turn the swatch, we can see an uneven pattern of purl-looking stitches, which is, of course, not reversible. The original instructions are to purl back, but that's a non-starter for reversible knitting. So let's take the first transformation step. For this row, we'll work another twisted compound row, starting with the compound increase-decrease as before. Knit 2 together, knit the first stitch again. For the 3rd stitch, we can see the rib on the other side of the work. So rather than knitting the 3rd stitch, I want to continue the knit-looking stitch on the other side. So we'll purl it on this side. One more time, knit 2 together, knit the first stitch again, and purl the 3rd stitch. This 1-row repeat is a compact version of the smile stitch and creates a lovely pattern in its own right. For the ribbon scarf, I wanted longer ribs to create the smiles. So let's take the next step in the transformation. Rather than work the twisted compound stitch on every row, we'll extend the rib and work a row as a simple 3-stitch rib row. To continue the rib pattern, the first stitch should be a knit stitch. As before, the 3rd stitch should be a purl to continue the rib on the other side. For the 2nd stitch, we can work it as a knit or a purl. We can see that the stitch on the needle is a purl-looking stitch, so let's match that, and purl the 3rd stitch of the repeat as before. Let's do that again. Knit the rib, purl the middle stitch, purl the rib on the other side. So far so good. When we turn the work, we're back on the side where we worked the compound stitch. If we work the next row with the compound stitch, then we end up with a non-reversible 2-row repeat. So instead, we'll take the 3rd step in the transformation and work another simple 3-stitch rib row. So, knit 1, purl 2. Working 2 rows the same keeps the balance between knit-looking and purl-looking stitches. The middle purl stitch also pushes the knit rib forward, which creates additional texture to the fabric. Now, the smile stitch pattern is worked as a 3-row repeat, which is naturally reversible. Row 1, knit 2 together, knit the first stitch again, and purl the 3rd stitch. You can see that the middle purl made on the other side starts the twisted compound stitch nicely. Row 2 and 3, repeat, knit 1, purl 2. The simple rib rows are a variation of the Pharaoh rib stitch, which is also a 3-stitch repeat and one of my favorite stitch patterns. Because the row with the twisted compound stitch is worked on alternating rows, it's important to count the rows carefully. After the twisted compound stitch row, the other side already has a longish rib. However, counting carefully like before shows that there are only 4 rows. Adding the 2 simple rib rows completes the stitch pattern and shows that it's technically a 6-row repeat. As I mentioned in the last video, the smile stitch was inspired by the smile of my daughter's new mother-in-law, and I'm quite happy with the result. I'll show pictures of the blue Mobius shawl I made for her at the very end of the video. The combination of the twisted compound stitch and the vertical ribs and the loft of the up-down worsted yarn creates an awesome, squishy, cozy fabric. For the ribbon scarf, I cast on 20 repeats of 3 stitches plus 2 selvage stitches, so 62 stitches in total. The color of the yarn brought to mind the looped ribbons worn in awareness of breast cancer. I created a second layer of fabric to create an opening and to hold the other end of the scarf, and separating the ends, just like the ribbon. For the next video, we'll be transforming the raspberry stitch into a reversible version. Let me know in the comments if you like these transformation videos and if you have a one-sided stitch pattern that's looking for a transformation. So pick up your knitting and create something awesome. I'll do my best to respond to comments, and I'd love to hear about your favorite reversible knitting pattern. Also feel free to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more awesome reversible knitting. For those of you still here, the last few years I've been working hard to find simple ways to feel better, what I call my daily well-being practices. This is not medical advice. I'm just sharing what works for me. Just like knitting the smile stitch, smiling itself is excellent therapy. Studies have shown that happiness encourages smiling, and smiling actually encourages happiness as well. Using the smiling muscles triggers a response in the brain and actually makes us feel happier. When my children were younger and needed some time out for reflection, the post-talk always included a smile and a hug to set us both on the right track. Have an awesome day.